I want to speak a minute about the purpose of the parables. I always thought that Jesus told these parables so to kind of weed out the fluff. He would tell an obscure story so those that were really serious about him would come and ask him, what in the world does that story mean? Well, actually, Jesus actually tells us the reason for his parables, and it's totally the opposite of that. In Matthew 13, verse 10, it says, the disciples came to him and asked, why do you speak to them in parables? And he said, because to you it is given to know. And then he goes on to tell why it was given to them and not to the other. He says, but to them I'll speak in parables. So the reason he spoke in parables wasn't to obscure it, but actually to make it more plainly to those who who were dull of hearing or wasn't seeing correctly. And what that demonstrates to us is the power of a story to break through blindness and break through the hardness of heart. I'm concerned that maybe that the secular world has grabbed a hold of this principle. See, the Bible is Eastern. The whole book, the whole Bible is a narrative. It's a true narrative, unlike the parables was what we would call Christian fiction. Jesus made these stories up in order to illustrate a truth. But actually, the entire Bible is a narrative, and it has all the, it's a story. It's a true story, but it's a story. And story just has a way of communicating, and the world, I think Hollywood and TV are doing a better job at using story to communicate. See, story communicates almost on a subconscious level. To use a bad example, it's always assumed that people shack up, and it's always assumed that the Christian is a dunce on everything in the mainstream media. And what they've done is they've put an image out there before people, and now people have bought it. And it's actually shaped the values of a generation. Well, they're actually taking a biblical principle and hijacking it and using it, and to where the church is shying away from it. James 1:22 says, be doers of the word and not hearers only. That word doers is the Greek word poetai, and it's from the word we get poetry from. So it speaks of creativity. It speaks of an artistic side. So we should be using these things. I'm believing God. There's a few, but I'm believing God to raise up people that can write good Christian fiction. And the theology in a lot of Christian fiction is hideous. I've tried to read it just for the fun of it, just for entertainment value. But the theology is hideous in a lot of it. And there's some good Christian movies, but I'm believing God to raise up more. Because that is a way to reach out. That's a good way to reach people. And you say, well, I can't write stories, so thanks for wasting my time. Well, not all is lost, my friend. You can actually use like movies and use things in it to preach the gospel to people. Use them as illustrations and use those things. Use things they know that are in story form to communicate truth to them. Because, you say, well, that's just unbiblical. If you read in 1 Corinthians 15:33, Paul says evil communications corrupt good morals. Well, you'll notice there's not a little footnote beside that referencing the Old Testament or referencing any other part of the Bible. Paul actually got that from a Greek comedy, Thais, and written by a guy named Menander. It was a play. It was a Greek play. Now, and it wasn't a particularly nice play. Well, and so does that mean Paul was endorsing everything that was in that play? No, he wasn't endorsing everything in that play. He was using something from their culture to communicate truth. And there are ways to do that. Find ways, and the Holy Spirit will help you. He'll find ways to communicate. Paul, whenever he was on Mars Hill, he quoted several of their philosophers. He quoted all these different things in order to communicate the gospel in a way that they could understand. So that's just a simple thought. Have a good day. Be blessed.